Welcome viewers to Souldin of the Grin Brothers E3 2015 Tea Time Talks. I hope you enjoy the following videos as Souldin of the Grin Brothers shares his thoughts on each of the E3 conferences. We shall now begin. Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin Brothers here, and it's time for a segment of E3 2015 Tea Time Talks. For this E3 2015 Tea Time Talks, I'm going to cover Bethesda's E3 conference. Now, I would normally start with these sort of things, with talking about the things that interest me. However, I don't really care much for Bethesda. Their games just don't really appeal to me. Rafi, on the other hand, he loves the Bethesda games. He's really excited for, say, Fallout 4. Me, I don't really care too much. So, I'm not really got any sort of ones to really focus on all that much. I suppose it would do good to comment on Doom. I have to comment on Doom because they showed it for like a whole half hour. I think they went too long in showing off the new Doom game. At the same time, though, they showed a lot of gameplay for it, and they talked about it a lot. They showed off the multiplayer and being able to like create your own game modes effectively, which is pretty cool. And the gameplay, it all looks a bit generic in design, but it looks smooth and fast, and I'm sure people who are fans of Doom will find it appealing. Not really sort of a game for me, but it looks good. You know, it looks well made and all that. The other big things that Bethesda talked about, they mentioned a game called Battlecry. Never really heard of it before, but it kind of looks like a... Well, okay, it definitely feels like a Team Fortress 2 sort of type game. It is a team-based sort of game with shooting, and it has like a very similar look and style to it, but it seems to have a lot more sort of close combat sort of involvement to it. A lot of sort of swords and weapons, sort of close melee weapon sort of thing. Though there are, of course, guns in it, and, you know, well, I don't know really, because I haven't played Team Fortress 2, but it gave off the same sort of vibe Battlecry did, yeah. Rather interesting, well, not interesting per se, but they showed off a new Dishonored game, Dishonored 2. Again, Rafi was a pretty big fan of the Dishonored game. So he's probably quite happy about the news of a sequel. I kind of like the sort of story progression in the way, as it were, in that I think it's the princess you had to rescue in the previous game. She's actually a main playable character now, because quite a few years have passed. Which I felt that's a nice sort of progression of some events within the Dishonored universe. At the same time as announcing that, they didn't show off any gameplay, just a CGI trailer. You know, for all my sort of complaint of how long the Doom trailer went on for, at least it was a lot of gameplay. But along with Dishonored 2, they also announced a Dishonored Definitive Edition, which was to be expected. I was kind of expecting them to announce a Skyrim Definitive Edition instead, but I always expected they'd be basically doing a Xbox One PS4 port remake sort of thing for one of their games at this conference. But it turns out that it was Dishonored that's gained the Definitive Edition. They also commented on some Elder Scrolls Online. Really don't care. I didn't even pay attention to any of that point, really. I just zoned out. They also announced this game called Elder Scrolls Legends. Hearthstone says hi. It is probably going to be a Hearthstone game. It's a Elder Scrolls a strategy card game for the phones and pads and whatnot. No gameplay shown, despite how they're planning on releasing it later this year, which is odd. Clearly, they should have been able to have some gameplay ready if they're releasing it later this year. But of course, the big thing for the Bethesda E3 conference was Fallout 4. I don't really care much for it, but I do like how they sort of start you off pre-Fallout. You know, pre all the destruction. And another cool thing they've done is you get a Pip-Boy, a collector's edition Pip-Boy. And you can put your phone into it and use it as a Pip-Boy, which is pretty cool. I wasn't a fan of how they were commenting so many times of how, you know, because of the phone's touchscreen, it's the only system they can really use that with. Then DS, 3DS, Wii U, and Vita all have touchscreens and actually make much better gaming devices than trying to play on a phone. But, that's just, my opinion. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the Bethesda E3 conference. Yep, I don't have much to really share on that. Don't really care much for it, but it was entertaining. Too much of certain games shown, not enough gameplay of others, but hey, it was fair enough. Cheerio then! Welcome everybody! Souldin of the Grin Brothers here, and it's time for another segment of E3 2015 Tea Time Talks. For this segment, I'm going to be talking about EA's conference 2015 at E3, yeah. Now, I was expecting... Okay, first off, Pele! Hey, sorry. When Pele came on stage for the E3 conference, all I could think about was the Cox and Crendor video on Pele. I couldn't understand anything that was going on at that point because I had a hard time understanding what Pele was saying, and I didn't know, and I'm not really all that familiar with football. But I mean, the interview was sort of like well done. The person interviewing seemed, generally interested, and it was all conducted rather professionally. But that's not about video games, other than connecting to the fact that Pele was promoting FIFA 16. I wasn't expecting there to be anything at EA's conference to actually interest me. But there was one game that really interested me. Okay, there's a couple of which, they look nice. But there was one game that actually interested me. And that would be Unravel. I'd say that the presentation of Unravel, as the creator of the game came up on stage to present his idea, how he came about making the game, and thinking of the concept of it, I'd say that would be my Ori and the Blind Forest moment of this E3. Last E3, Ori and the Blind Forest was the moment that left me awestruck. It was just a beautiful moment, and I just loved it. And I'd say that's what Unravel was for me at this E3. It wasn't quite as impressive as in, I have to play this game, but it was the moment which really touched me, and the person who was presenting Unravel felt really genuine. The game is a cool concept of, you're made of yarn. There are so many yarn platforms at the point, it should literally be a genre of its own. And you're going about, sort of going along, and as you go along, you unravel. And you have to use your sort of yarn to sort of like connect things or hook onto things. And there would be intricate puzzles in the landscape. And when you sort of look back, you'll see everything that you've interacted with, as it were, all as your yarn sort of connecting everything together. And it's just a really cool game, sort of both in concept and in how it was presented. And yeah, it was my best moment of sort of EA's conference, and I will probably get it, hoping it's coming out on either Xbox One or Wii U. Probably Xbox One. EA's got no support for Wii U, so... And I look forward to playing it. Other than that, as I expected, there wasn't really much to interest me at EA's conference. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2, saying Graveyard Bomb, I think the subtitle is. Yeah, that looks fun. There was an orange ball sort of plant introduced, which is clearly a Metroid-inspired thing. Sorry about the coughing. It even looked like a morph ball as it came onto the sort of battlefield. And there's this one super zombie they introduced which can basically fire out Kamehamehas, and that's pretty awesome. But it's not the sort of game I'm sort of interested in, but just an intrigue one, and my brothers play it from time to time. So the only other game at EA's sort of conference that I'd say piqued my interest would probably be the new Mirror's Edge game, Mirror Edge Catalyst. It looks really nice. It's such a colourful sort of game and bright. It looks like a fun concept, but I didn't hear very many... I've heard mixed opinions of the first game. It is technically a first-person platforming game, and those don't tend to usually work. So, that was pretty much it. EA did a nice sort of opening with the new Mass Effect, which I think is a new sort of jumping-on point for anyone who's sort of interested in the series, because I don't think it's going to be too heavily linked into the previous games. I mean, it's going to have the gameplay, but... But otherwise, the one thing that really interested me at EA's was Unravel, and good job on EA for having that, because that was just brilliantly done. Brilliantly presented. The guy who presented it is so genuinely passionate about this game, and the Unravel game looks fun and beautiful. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on EA's conference. Please feel free to share your own thoughts as well. Cheerio then.